the grievance narrative that comes from Trump. This notion there is a sort of a victim.
Well, they did try to put him in prison for 300 years, right? They did try to bankrupt him. Well, if a guy ever had a set of grievances, they did steal, according to us, and we're firm believers that.
Krystal and Saagar of Breaking Points. In this clip, take a look at a conversation between, in Krystal's words, greasy Gavin and sloppy Steve. Gavin Newsom has a conversation with Steve Bannon. He's got a podcast. He's talking to all these right-wingers. WTF. Let's take a listen to this together. They make some good points. It's an interesting listen. I'll have some thoughts to offer as we go, and then I want to know what you think in the comments. Let's check it out.
You flagged a bunch of moments here from Gavin Newsom and Steve Bannon on the podcast. Yeah, go.
Well, I just want to set this up a little bit before we get to Greasy Gavin and Sloppy Steve here. So this is, I think the order is, I think this is Gavin Newsom's third podcast of his new series, which, by the way, is apparently using campaign funds to promote it, which seems wrong to me, but whatever. That's what's happening. And all three of them have been right-wing like commentators or influencers. You had Charlie Kirk was number one, Michael Savage, who's like a right-wing radio host, I guess, was number two, and then you have Steve Bannon. I think that's the right order. So when I saw originally that was the direction he was going in, because the first two were announced right away. So you knew he was leading off with these conservative commentators. I was like, oh, this is actually really smart. He's going to get in there. He's going to fight with them the way he did with Ron DeSantis. That was so popular with Democrats. And as we discussed earlier in the show, I don't think that the liberal base of the Democratic Party has like an ideological priority right now. They just want to see someone who can fight. And I am deeply worried, because I am not a Gavin Newsom fan, that someone like him, who has the rhetorical debate skills to pull off the appearance of a fighter, could snow people into thinking like this is the guy for the moment and he's got to be our next nominee or whatever. But that is not what happened. Instead, in each of these, and I've watched a good chunk of all of them, it is so friendly. It's so buddy-buddy. So whoever it is that's sitting, or whether it's Charlie Kirk or Michael Savage or Steve Bannon, are allowed to endlessly insult him, number one, which is like super cuck behavior with him just sort of like laughing it off. And number two, just like try to pitch people on their ideological view with next to no pushback. So as an example of that, I present to you some snippets from Gavin Newsom and Steve Bannon here from his most recent podcast. Let's take a listen.
Everything happening with the markets, everything happening with the with tariffs, everything happening with CR and a potential government.
Don't be giving tariffs stink eye. I don't want to start off with you giving it stink eye already.
We'll stress test.
I'm a tariff guy.
I appreciate that, and we'll see. We'll stress test.
The purpose I want to do this is I want to convert you to be a tariff guy also. This is part of the process to unwind you from being a globalist to make you a populist nationalist. It's a long journey. It's a long journey, but I think you'll get there.
This is part of the deprogramming, is it? I appreciate it. And by the way, for the record, I'm going down your rabbit hole right here. I'm not an absolutist as it relates to being against tariffs by any stretch of the imagination. And I thought it interesting what I think Biden tripled tariffs on aluminum and steel, which is getting a lot of attention in this country today as it relates to Canada. And Democrats weren't screaming and yelling about that.
So that was kind of how things kicked off at another point. Yeah, I mean, super friendly. And and why these Democrats so like hypocritical? It's like, yeah, I mean, you see what I'm talking about here. There was another moment where,
I mean, is Gavin Newsom thinking about running for president as a Republican?
Bannon insists repeatedly that the election was stolen from them in 2020. And even on that, which is like a core liberal priority, rebutting that lie, Gavin just kind of lets it slide. Let's take a listen.
We learned after President Trump, and look, we disagree on this, but President Trump won the 2020 election, and we were kind of shattered as a movement when he left Washington, D.C., and we had to go back to basics to say, it can't be somebody else do something. We had to do something, and that's where we went back to really a pure populist movement to go at the grassroots, the precinct strategy, and kind of rebuild ourselves from there.
Well, and I appreciate the notion of agency, that we're not bystanders in the world. It's decisions, not conditions, that determine our fate and future. And that fundamental notion of agency, I think, is important more broadly. And I think that goes to some of the issues around, victimization. And I see a lot of that, respectively, on the right, increasingly, even with Trump often approaching things from that sort of mindset.
What do you mean? What do you mean for Trump?
I think there's sort of the grievance narrative that comes from Trump. This notion there is a sort of a victim.
Well, they did try to put him in prison for 300 years, right? They did try to bankrupt him. If a guy ever had a set of grievances, they did steal, according to us, and we're firm believers, the 2020 election, which I think worked out better. That providentially that he was able to come back with that gap, because I think you're seeing a much more not just new and improved, but somebody that's much more in command of these decisions and really stepping up in a way that we could have never done before.
So it was kind of the energy. I mean, listen, obviously we do the show. We believe in people talking to people who have different opinions than them. But it's just profoundly interesting to me how much Gavin Newsom is misreading the moment for the Democratic base.
That's insane to me. That is insane that he's there being conciliatory in the face of that. Donald Trump lost the election. It was not stolen. They took every possible avenue in the courts that they could. Trump judges, non-Trump judges, all judges, like 60 times got thrown out. No evidence. No evidence. No evidence. It's a lie. It's a lie they keep repeating. He just didn't win it. He did win it this time, right? I mean, and the idea of like, well, they tried to put him in prison because he did it. Because he did it. 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 He's a convicted felon. That's the one they actually got through court and got a sentence on. I firmly believe he did all of the other stuff too. And there's a mountain of evidence to support it. And they greased the wheels and they weaseled and they delayed and they pulled every possible Roy Cohn trick in the book they could. But come on, you know, either our courts mean something or they don't. They've already assailed free speech here and they're working on the courts now.
It's because clearly he wants to run for president. Clearly this podcast is about setting him up for that. And he is really disqualifying himself in the eyes of many Democratic base voters because of the patty cakes way that he approached these conversations. And the other thing that jumps out at me too, Saagar, is like, first of all, Steve Bannon is very smart. Steve Bannon knows what his ideology is, knows the world that he wants to see made, knows how he wants to convert people over to that worldview and ideology. And a just sort of like empty, ambition-driven neoliberal like Gavin Newsom, I think really doesn't have much of an ideology to speak of as well. Like, you're no match for that because you don't, number one, you don't really care. And number two, like some kind of ideology is going to be no ideology every day. And so instead of using your platform to offer a different vision, you know, and you can do that in a way that's not like ugly and like it doesn't have to be personal. But if you're not offering any sort of competing vision, you're just giving up space for Steve Bannon to make more converts effectively.
I don't know what Gavin's strategy is here. I mean, maybe it's that he's got a nice smile and he's the governor of the biggest state, and maybe he thinks these liberals, I mean, if we're being honest, are going to vote for him anyways if he does win the nomination. So maybe he doesn't need them necessarily, and he can
he's got to win a Democratic primary,
right? But
and there's going to be a crowded field.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, look, I'm saying from his perspective is what? Is that, okay, we just had an election, we didn't win the popular vote, I've got to try and have some inroads here with the dudes and with the other people who are more MAGA possible friendly, show them that I'm not some horrible monster and that I'm nice and greasy, you know, and I can give it to them what they need, while also maybe in the future giving the Democratic base what it needs. Are there really going to be boomers in Iowa who aren't going to vote for Gavin because he had Steve Bannon on his podcast? A little bit skeptical, right?
But that's not the point, man. The point is a scorpion and the frog. So you can say, well, listen, people are voting for the scorpion. Maybe we need to move a little more towards scorpion. You know, maybe we give the scorpion a ride on our backs a few times. The scorpion stings, right? The scorpion stings. And if it stings all the frogs and kills all the frogs because the frogs keep letting it, then and all that's left are scorpions, and the scorpions are going to start stinging each other. That's the way this goes. There's no appeasement. It doesn't play out. There's no winner. If the scorpions win, that's it for everybody. Nobody wins that.
18 months from now?
I'm wrong about that.
No, we got 2 more years to go. It's been 50 days. I mean, just an eternity.
My theory is that the way politicians conducted themselves right now, when it was uncertain and when it was difficult because they did just suffer a defeat, is going to be a critical litmus test in 2028. Because that is the way that the Democratic base has really aligned itself up to this point, where, again, I wish it was more ideological. It's not. Most of the people, not all, but most of the people who are filling in the gap of being those fighters happen to be on the left, happen to be people like Bernie Sanders. AOC has been very vocal. Al Green is another person who's really, he's not going to be running for president or whatever, but I'm just saying, like, Maxwell Frost is another one who's been outspoken and people feel like, okay, this is someone who's at least trying to put up a fight, et cetera. Rashida Tlaib, certainly. In any case, most of the people who have emerged to fill that gap happen to be on the left. But I was fearful that a Gavin Newsom, who is very rhetorically skilled, who was very effective in that debate against Ron DeSantis, I think even conservatives had to admit, like, he handled himself pretty well there. If he had these people on and he fought with them, I think he would be unstoppable in 2028. And I'm actually glad, in a sense, that he's approaching it this way. And what I attribute it to, Saagar, is I think he's in these Silicon Valley donor circles where they're jealous of the right. It's the same people like Hakeem Jeffries was talking to. And they want the more like conciliatory, capitulate, like make nice. That's the approach that they want. there is a big divide between that like donor base of the Democratic Party, especially the Silicon Valley donor base of the Democratic Party, and where the Democratic base is and what they want to see. And I can promise you, he is misreading the moment for the Democratic base in order to win a Democratic primary, like in an unbelievable way. So if you think about like the viewers of Brian Tyler Cohen, if you think about the Midas Touch brothers, like they in particular have been disgusted with him. Their viewers are disgusted with him. And that's where the energy in the party is right now.
I just don't want to overread it.
I don't. You're
because
right.
Who's got better political judgment, the left or people like Gavin Newsom?
That's my point. Is this isn't the left,
no,
and that's what I think Gavin Newsom is reading it as well. Because he thinks, oh, these are just like the Bernie people. They're always mad about everything. Whatever, shut up, right? You people voted for Joe Biden last time around. But the difference is, and this is what I think the Democratic Party is not understanding and is really failing on, is that it's not just the left. I'm telling you, it's the indivisible groups. It's the core, like the people who went to the Women's March. It is the core Democrat. You go to your average Democratic County Party meeting and it's flooded with regular normie Democrat voters. Like the median voter in the party is disgusted with party leadership for not putting up enough of a fight. And I think that's where they are profoundly misreading their own voters, because they think that it's still just like, oh, the Bernie people. No, this is your MSNBC watcher. These are the people who have flooded to Midas Touch, the people that have flooded to Brian Tyler Cohen, your normie resistance Democrat that thinks that Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries need to resign yesterday, that are thoroughly disgusted with the patty cakes with Charlie Kirk and Steve Bannon and Michael Savage and whatever, and are really looking for something different than what the Democratic leadership are providing right now.
Maybe, it's certainly possible. I'm not ready to count Gavin out yet. I mean, I wouldn't count him out. You don't become governor of the biggest state in the country.
He is hurting himself. He is hurting himself right now.
We'll see. But I think that this whole, I don't know, there's just so many moving pieces. I don't think we can take a next conventional election for granted at this point. And I think there's lots of conversations to have about that related to the shutdown and other things. But those are probably different videos. Let me know what you think in the comments.